you're watching this live now or if you're going to watch this on the rerun, I want to let you know that I do indeed appreciate it that you took some of your valuable time to watch. Welcome, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my Sunday night ramblings. And I think I got a few for you tonight. Um, it has been a very interesting week. Weather-wise here in Amsterdam, it's been cold and wet, but I decided to take a few days off this week, regardless. And the days that I took off were the best days of the week. So sometimes it doesn't quite work. Hey, Ben, welcome, welcome, welcome. Uh, yeah, it's funny. Usually with me, when I go on a holiday, sometimes I catch the bad weather. But in this case, I actually caught some good weather. Hey, welcome, welcome, hello, hello, welcome, welcome. And yeah, it was nice. I took a trip to some islands here called Texel, and just a day trip. Took the ferry with my dog, and been just kind of taking it easy for the last few days, puttering here and there. Actually working on mastering my album. I'm actually making that part of my thing to do is to take time to finish that project up. A lot of fits and starts with that one, but it looks like I'm going to get it done here and get it out to you guys. Hey, welcome, welcome. Well, I see enough people are here. I was waiting for everybody to kind of show up. I'm glad to see everybody has made it this evening. I'm going to start out with my main topic for tonight, actually. I've got, uh, you know, few things to talk about and a lot of time. No, actually, strike that, reverse it. I've got a lot of time and a few time and a lot of things to talk about tonight. So let me get into it. You know, I don't, uh, as you know, I don't gravitate towards Stratocasters. I never have. It hasn't been a guitar that really was something that I was into a lot. I was aware of them from a very young age. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. I did get a Strat. My good friend Drake Gooseby, who I will mention here several times, I haven't been in contact with him for quite a while now. But I have to say they point to him as one of the people who really got me into playing guitar, and he had a Squire Strat, a white one. And it was quite the envy of the high school. So much so that one time he actually got it stolen from the music room. Hey, good evening, Mickey. Welcome, welcome. And yeah, dig that. And so I myself had a Telecaster. I had a Squire as well that I eventually ended up with as my first electric. It was a Squire Telecaster. As you know, I've pretty much well been a Telecaster, and I've switched over to Les Paul guy. Put a Strat in position 2 and 4, and you'll fall in love. Yeah. But last week, if you guys recall, the question did come to me. Hey, welcome, welcome. About what I thought about the Strats, the HHS, what is that? HHSS configuration, humbug or HSS, humbucker, single, single. And I said I really didn't have an opinion on those because I don't gravitate towards Strats. I never really have. But I started thinking to myself, um, you know, you have a YouTube channel. You know about Strats. Certainly, it wouldn't hurt you to branch out and to start talking about them. It certainly wouldn't be a problem playing one, seeing that you really haven't seriously picked up a Strat in years, just even to play around with. So I thought that I would look into getting one. And at the same time, oddly enough, if you guys know, there's a auction site called Catawiki, and I've had no success with that auction site. I always get sniped at the end. You know, it's the last like 5 minutes. I think I've got the high bid, and some guy comes in and just, and it just goes. And it's just a waste of time. Um, but I was looking at it because it came up in my feed. Hey, there's a new guitar auction. Why don't you take a look at it this week? And welcome to the dark side. Yeah. Now, again, I'm not ignorant. Strats are great. They're like Swiss Army knife and guitar. Well, I believe that, Mickey. But as you know, I think that the Telecaster is a Swiss Army knife. But it's interesting they're both Fender design guitars, so there's something there. Um, but I'm not ignorant of Strats, and I do have a preference because of Drake's Strat, which was a 580, which is the color code for Arctic White. His was a 580 Arctic White Squire. Uh, the Squires from that era back then were Japanese transitioning into no, they were Japanese. That had to be because we were talking about that's early Squires. Um, maybe even a little bit. It had to be towards the time we were seniors. So yeah, around 85, 86. But in any case, love that color. Hendrix, of course, had a white Strat. Everybody knows that he played at Woodstock, so that's an iconic color for a Strat. And I thought to myself, hey, you know what? Maybe let's take a look and see if we can find it. Now, this auction site had, interestingly enough, exactly the make and model and within the year range of Strats that I would be interested in buying. And it wasn't a Fender. I don't want to invest that kind of money into this for me just to try it out. But I did want to make sure that I got a good Squire. The Strat is a combination of the Broadcaster and Telecaster. I'm gonna get to that one moment about seeing it. I'm just gonna let you guys right now. Uh, my favorite Strat is slightly odd. It's my hardtail. Absolutely love it. Yeah, this one is not a hardtail Strat. You guys are not going to see the Strat tonight. This is a preview of next week's content show because it's literally in the mail. It should arrive tomorrow or Tuesday. But I am going to tell you what it is, and I'm going to tell you the background of it and my thoughts on it. And you will see it. Of course, I'll bust it out this week. We'll do a regular content show on it, and I'll bring it out again. I've got another guitar over here that I want to talk about tonight. But so you won't see this one. It's still in the mail. It's from Belgium. I won it for roughly $85. So that should give you some idea of what we're talking about, Squire wise. We're talking about a 2001. Hey, Frederick, good evening. Thank you so much to be taking the time to be here. It is a 2001 Squire Affinity. It is a 2001 Squire Affinity. Now, why, Mike, would this be a model that you're interested in terms of Squires? Well, I know, nice, but yeah, hardtails are nice. I know that the Squires that were made in Korea were actually the ones that gave them all a kind of a bad name. Now, that's kind of weird. You would think that it would be the Chinese ones and then going over to Korea that would make it better, but no. In the case of the Squires, when they moved their operations from Japan, and as we know, I've owned a Japanese Squire. My Telecaster, no, I'm sorry. My Telecaster was a Japanese Squire. or was it? Yeah, yeah, or was it Japanese Fender? Anyway, they moved production of all of that over to Korea, and that's when the QC on those really started going bad. We're talking about the '80s now, and it was, and going into the '90s, and it was decided by Fender at that time, hey, we can't let this continue. Our competition is eating our lunch. Sound familiar? Just like PRS at that time was eating Gibson's lunch, or revving up to, because they could produce better guitars with better woods. And the same story in the case of Fender's competitors during that time. So they moved from Korea to China. Now, in terms of China, I would I will take a moment to I digress to say that remember, Taiwan is not part of China. Taiwan is its own separate thing. The Chinese government would like to say otherwise, and they may prove militarily otherwise. But at the moment, as it stands, it's its own separate country. Now, Fender went to Taiwan and employed a company there called Yagero, or Yano is the English way it's pronounced, but Yagero is kind of the way it's pronounced. Um, Went to that company and said, hey, we want you to produce Squires. So they first came out with the Telecaster Squires, uh, then they came out with the Stratocaster Squires. Um, and this would take you up to around the 98 to 99 mark of this story, where I'm getting to this particular guitar and why I chose it. Um, at that time, in around 97, 96, 97, it's a little it's a little hazy with the history. Fender decided that they wanted to create a lower price version of that Squire. We'll call it the Squire Traditional is what they call it, or the Standard as we would know it. And they created a line called the Affinity. Now that Affinity line of guitars during that period of time was still being produced by this Taiwanese company that was, now just because it was a Taiwanese based company, their factory was in China and Guangzhou. So these guitars were being produced in the mainland, but they were being overseen by this Taiwanese company. And that first 98, 99, 2000 period, Affinity, Stratocaster in particular, and the Telecasters, they were no different from the traditional, as we would call the line that they had been doing up to that point. They had full thickness bodies, full necks on them, a lot of few other details on them. They were essentially the same thing, and everybody knew it too, especially in the UK. In the UK, a lot of cats knew that if you just buy the Affinity, it's just as good as the slightly higher priced. We're only talking about 50 pounds or so difference, but still they're basically the same. They're not basically, they are the same guitar. Of course, distributors got hip to this, and they said to themselves, okay, we're going to have to redesign this to make it a little bit more sense in this equation. So in the year 2000, that's when you start seeing the transition from that old, Affinity body style, which was basically the traditional or the standard style of those Squires, moving over into the Affinity that we know as it stands today. Now, however, this 2000 to 2001 traditional transitional time period when they were making these Strats, there was a lot of crossover. There were parts that were left over, so you can get a 2001 that may have some parts on it from previous, or a body or a neck or any combination thereof. The bodies were made from alder, and they were reasonably light. The ones that were for U.S. consumption, the one that was for international, were made from Agatha. slightly similar wood. So if you find yourself a 2001 Squire Affinity that has a 6-point tremolo system on it, not the 2-point tremolo system that came the following year, or even during that year, because again, like I said, it's a transitional period, so they were trying out things. And uh, the actually that's it stayed. There are some that had 2-point tremolos, some had 6. Now it's 6, I believe. It's still 6-point tremolo on those. Correct me if I'm wrong out there. My memory serves me. There, yeah, 6-point tremolo is still on those. So a 2001 model is a kind of it's between that 98 and 2001. It's kind of a sweet spot if you're looking for an Infinity. The other thing is that the price on those. Also, the pickups are ceramic pickups on those as well. Later on, 2002, they switched over to Alnico 5s. Some people like the ceramic pickups. They say that it has the old-fashioned, Strat twang to them, vintage sound to them, the vintage tune. Some people find them too ice picky. I know what a Strat sounds like, should sound like, so when I get it, we will listen to that and see how the ceramic pickups. The other thing that I wanted, it had to be all original, no swaps. Of course, being in this price range, as I said, I got mine for under $100. With shipping, including from Belgium, it came out to about $120. I got this guitar for. It's really about the condition. It's in good condition. The reason I wanted that Arctic white, by the way, is because it's aged. You're talking about a 22-year-old guitar now. It has turned to a beautiful, that aged color that only time will do to these guitars. So that's a good thing. It's got a little bit of a dents in it, little nicks here and there, but nothing major. So therefore, it fits the part. It looks like it's been relicked by time, so that's good. Not heavily relicked, not so bad. Again, like I said, all the parts, all the pickups, all the tuners, everything on this thing is original, and that is amazing because in this price range, these things are mod, city. And most of them have been bought and modded out. A lot of YouTube channels you'll see is guys buying these and they're modding them. So to find one in its original condition, its original parts and pieces, is another thing that I wanted. And I won't mod it either. If it's lasted 22 years without anybody screwing with it, it must mean that it's okay. It's pretty good. So that's the Strat that I have. It's not here to show yet, guys. I'm sorry to disappoint, but like I said, I've got another guitar over here in the wings that we're going to talk about tonight. But I wanted to give you why I bought. Lost my light. Why I bought that particular one, that particular model. It's because the color, the time period, the value. I think that the Strats, the Affinity Strats, are some of the best value out there for Stratocasters. If you're going to get a Strat and you're going to get it new, that's a good value. You're getting a lot of guitar, even the newer ones. But if you can find one of the older ones, and by the way, yeah, that was first run, 20th anniversary model, 2001. So that was the other thing about this one. So it's an anniversary year model, and I can't wait to get it. We will unbox that here, and you guys can check that out. So that's the background on this guitar and my Strat. SSS configuration on this one. I do believe that some of them came in HSS configuration, humbucker single. But yeah, I can't wait. Now that light is going out, guys, I'm gonna pull myself a little closer here. There we go, that's better. Yeah, I'm excited. It's mine. It's not going to be moved on. It's not a guitar that I will be selling. As you know, guys, I'm into buying older guitars, pre 2001. So this one is right at the cutoff. Generally, for my business too, for the guitars that I buy and sell uh, in my side business, one of my side businesses. Uh, I generally gravitate towards 90s guitars, and if they're in a bit of rough condition, I will take the time to try to, as best as I can, refurbish them. To try to get it as close to the original as possible. Um, the Diarmond that I had, if you guys remember, if not, check back on my channel and look at the Diarmond that I covered. That was a restoration job. It was missing some knobs. It was missing the correct, a few things there. Through the miracles of 3D printing, I was able to recreate those knobs exactly as it stood and some of the other things. So it worked out. It looked just like brand new. So I like doing that kind of work. I dig that. I like breathing life into guitars that other people would pass up on, that I know are good guitars, and then finding a new home for them where they'll be continue to be enjoyed for a long time. I have to be honest with you, I didn't think of it that way originally, but that has turned out to be the truth of it. I do enjoy that, is taking them. And in light of that, I have one here that I've been discussing. Uh, right here is an Orville Les Paul, an LP75. This one is a 1993 model. Yeah, it is a three-piece solid top. It is sprayed in nitro. And it is quite an instrument. And interesting thing about these guitars is that they didn't stamp like a hard stamp or burn a stamp into the headstocks of these. They actually had a sticker. And when I got this, you could still see the residue of the. I've since cleaned it up, of the residue of that sticker on these, the domestic ones. These, and I do believe that most of this model were domestic. And so yeah, again, we're talking a 20-year-old guitar here, essentially. I'm sorry, 30-year-old. 30, is my math off? Yeah, my math is off. Thank you. Yeah, in this case, a 30-year-old guitar. And I have been refurbishing it. Our friendly channel Luthier Fern and I, between the two of us, will tackle a project like this. And generally, Fern will check the structural issues, and he will also take a look at the electronics as well. I will look for parts and things of that nature to if they're missing or if they need to be replaced, or if I feel as though the whole thing should be replaced in the caps or pots or things like that. I will find those, and so between the two of us, we've been doing quite a few guitars, and this is the project that we've been working on this week, and I want to share it with you guys. Because this one was a little bit of a tricky one. It still remains to be. What do I like about these Orville guitars from that period? Just a little bit of a recap on these guitars. And yeah, it's got no strings because I'm working on it as we speak. Just a little bit of recap on these Orville guitars is that Gibson wanted to basically, just to boil it all down, they wanted to create a domestic market Les Paul equivalent just for Japan consumption only, that wasn't as expensive as their U.S. produced Gibsons, because the exchange rate, shipping, and all that was just killing that deal. It was making it really out of the price range for the ordinary Japanese salaryman, musician, or whoever. So they came up with the Orville by Gibson, which is a step above these. Those were not just for domestic consumptions; those also went out as well internationally. Those had burst bunker pickups. You know, I've gotten so much better with saying that. Remember in the beginning, I couldn't even say that. I had to, I was stumbling over that. Burst bunker. Wow. Tell you, time and experience. But they came with burst bunkers. They had binding, as you can see. This guitar has none. It doesn't have binding on the fret nibs like you would find. But that's the only difference between this guitar and a Les Paul standard of that era. Everything else is identical. The woods construction. I don't know about three pieces. But this one is a three-piece top here. You can see the seams 1, 2, 3. But can we see that? Yeah, we can see that. Yeah, I see that. And that series of guitars was very successful, obviously, because the price range of them. This one, I believe, was Nanaman Gosenyen. Today, roughly, that's about $500, $600, somewhere around there. And they were quite affordable to the domestic market, so they went out. So they're not rare per se, but again, when you're talking about a 30-year-old guitar, every year there's just more of a chance that something's going to happen to one of them, or there's just going to be less and less, and eventually what you get left with are the good ones, or the ones that are just, they need some work. That's my sweet spot. That's where I kind of kick in. And this one was no exception. It had no pick guard at all on it. So this pick guard actually, we took a Gibson pick guard and stenciled one out, and Fern cut it. So he cut this specifically just for this guitar. One of the pickup rings was damaged. As you can see, it came cracked. So I replaced the pickup rings. I'm still waiting. I have this one I replaced. I'm going to replace this one as well because the color is not quite matching there. There you go, as you can see. Not quite matching there. So I have replaced this front ring. So I will replace that too. But it occurred to me also for about the same price, because it's not very expensive, of sending these two pickup rings to my 3D modeling company here in Amsterdam and just having them redo these, because the replacement Gibson pickup rings, they are not of the same thickness. They're this design. This is the kind of thickness that you would find on custom shops or Gibson USA models, or the older ones. These newer ones are just a little bit slightly smaller in terms of their height. They're just not quite as thick as these. So the idea of sending this off to a 3D modeling company has come to mind, and it's exactly what I'm going to do. Gee, I hope I haven't lost everybody because I'm not seeing a lot of action out there. Guys, I see 14 people watching and 5 likes. Something wrong with the math. Hit the likes. Let me know you're still out there. Sometimes I feel like I'm just giving a dissertation and nobody's listening. Okay, all right, thank you. Just want to make sure the signs of life out there. Anyway, I find this interesting, guys, because the idea of having these recreated in 3D printing is something that's interesting. But for right now, these temporary, well, we'll see how it goes. But I will replace these rings. So I had to replace the rings. But I want you to look here, and you'll see the main problem with this guitar. You'll see this repair area right here and here. And what happened was that somebody tried to put the bushing, they tried to force the bushings in, they caused a crack, and then they did a very, it's good, it works, it's structural, it's okay, but they did a very not great looking repair on that. Uh, Fern and I scratched our heads. We looked at it. We played it out. It's fine. I mean, it doesn't affect the playability of the guitar, but yeah, it's got that on it. So that's the story with why this one is, as I said, it's one of those models that most people would pass on, but I took a chance on it because other than that, as you can see, you've got a three-piece solid top there, a beautiful top. The electronics on it are fine. I did replace one of the speed knobs. So one of these knobs is actually not original. You would not know. That's one of the cool things. And one of the pots underneath it as well. The pot and the knob got compressed. I think what happened was maybe this fell forward and pushed the bushings in. You'll look there and you'll see that those bushings are your true, Gibson style of bushings that you would find back in the 50s models, the bridge there. It it had good bones, I thought to myself. So I took a chance on it, took it down to Fern, and frets are great, neck is straight, no issues with it, just that unfortunate bad repair. Neck is fine, nothing wrong with the neck, no breaks or cracks. This is a one-piece neck on this thing, so that would be obvious. Um, and so yeah, ouch, as was said. And so yeah, but I took a chance. There's the back, you can see. Um, that's the only little bad part, but actually, I don't mind that. Actually, I kind of like that. But that was the one thing with this pickups. I'll be frank with you, and a couple of things about this guitar. I like it. I'm not saying that just because I have it. I'll always be honest with you. Uh, it's a light guitar. It's lighter than my Stoner. I'm going to say that this guitar, this may be in the high end of 7 pounds, maybe 7.5. No, not 7.5. It's definitely under 8 pounds. It's light and it's still solid mahogany back, three-piece maple top, one-piece neck, long neck tenon. Again, like I said, a true AVR. I believe that's bridge, um, and I plugged it in and I played it, and it is a ringer. Uh, does your one have fret nibs, Mike? My old Orville custom bid, but I know some didn't. Well, the customs were the high end, and it might have said Orville by Gibson on your custom. I do believe it did, and yes, indeed, that was the high end. They were Burstbucker pickups, fret nibs. They stand as some of the best customs, better than the U.S. produced customs on those. And if you can, and the prices on those are astronomical. Those things are getting up there to the 2.5, 3,000 range. These guitars, and the other reason I took a chance on it, I saw it. My agent saw it in a shop in Osaka, sent me pictures of it. I took a chance on it, is because these Orville guitars, the LS75s, these guitars can fetch up to $1,500 around the going rate. They're because of what you're getting. You're basically getting a Les Paul standard, no fret nibs. But you've got binding, you've got full body on it, one-piece neck, long tenon. Again, some features on it that you would have to go to the custom shops in order to get. So they're going for a premium too. Because of the condition of this one with this crack, believe it or not, this one still, fetches a good value to it if it's repaired correctly. It needed some TLC. So like I said, you can see that's the restoration work that I've done so far by cutting a pickup, pick guard for it, custom pick guard, replacing one of the pots and one of the knobs. Like I said, you would never know which one of those was the original or not, which is good. That's what I'm aiming for. And other than and had Fern go through the electronics. Um, it's a light guitar. These pickups, no, these aren't that we could concern. These are just, the stock pickups that came with these. But guys, this is the best sounding guitar Les Paul that in the bridge position for my taste that I come across. I was switching between this and my Orville here with my ampless pedal rig, and just switching between the two guitars and just hitting chords and playing riffs and just going between the two of them. This guitar kicks my, I hate to say it, but tonally pickup wise. Hey, Maddie Two Hats, welcome, welcome. Uh, this one, the bridge position pickup just kicks my stoner guitar's butt. Uh, this is the meatiest, growliest sounding guitar Les Paul that I've heard since my six. You know what it is? These, I just thought of it. These pickups on this guitar sound just as we talked about a few weeks ago. The 490 and the 498 Gibson pickups. These are the closest things that I've heard to them. And the other thing that I noticed, and even Fern, he had it for a week. He in his possession while he was going through the electronics and cutting the pick guard. The bridge pickup is on backwards. You see that? Bridge pickup on it, and it came that way. And I didn't notice it. I had been playing it that way when I was doing the AB. I was playing it that way, and I think that might have something to do with why it sounds so good. Now I've done this before. I've put it on backwards and played it on other guitars. I did it here on my gosh, what's this sitting here behind me? Anyway, I've got a guitar with humbuckers back here. I tried it and it'll come to me. My Harley Benton, and not so great sounding. It's not the greatest thing, but on this guitar, I didn't notice it, and I loved it. And Fern and I both we were sitting there when he was tuning up after he got done and gave it to me. And he said, "Wow, well at least we know the pickups are working." I said, "Oh yeah." So that's basically the story with this guitar. I will finish doing the refurbishing on it, but and I know you're looking at that repair and you're saying that's bad, but actually because these guitars and the condition that this was in, it's basically, other than that, it's fine. I will be moving it on, but oddly enough, guys, I like the sound of this guitar so much, and the fact that it is so much lighter than my Stoner guitar. The Stoner guitar and this one are night and day in terms. And again, I'm always looking for a light Les Paul. I'm actually seriously considering, and I know you're saying to yourself, "Really, Mike? You would keep that one?" Yeah. With that, yeah, because this repair, even though it's ugly, it's an ugly duckling guitar in that regard. But in terms of sound and just the lightweightness of this, and the fact that it's a solid, it's got all the things I like: long tenon, solid top, solid back. It's even got, like I said, true ABR, on there with posts into the body. Yeah, it's a ringer. It's a ringer. So I'm seriously considering it. I am actually seriously considering keeping this one. It's a 30-year-old guitar. I figure that what it is that wood has, you can, this is my own kind of weirdo thinking, but after 30 years, this wood, which back then, you have to remember was older wood too, the Japanese wood. I think in 30 years the wood has dried, it's mellowed, seasoned, if you will, and the guitar has settled. Yeah, it had an unfortunate accident there. Again, like I said, either they were doing something and they put the bushings in, they were replacing the bushings and they put it in too much and caused that crack, or this thing fell forward and it caused that. But the repair, they could have done a prettier job, but it doesn't affect the playability or the sound of this guitar. One thing that I could do is I could completely scrape this top, take everything off, and just completely refinish this top, get it down to the bare wood again. That would be an option, but doggone it, that burst is just it's just pretty. I would hate to, because if I did that, it would end up becoming a gold top or maybe a natural top. I was thinking, if I did gold, then I would have to do the whole thing all the way around, and then, why? Yeah, that's a big job. And you have to ask yourself. I put a poll up on my Les Paul forum. I talked about this guitar with the guys there, and I said, "What would you do?" And at the end of impersonal, impromptu kind of poll, and half of guys said, "Well, I would refinish it," and the other half said, "Hey, if it sounds good, if it plays good, why mess with it? Anyway, it's a beautiful guitar otherwise." And interesting enough, the guys who were recommending doing the refinish work were guys who have experience doing luthier work, doing that. They have a proper, workstation in order to do that kind of work. They're gearheads, gear guys. I am too a bit, but not to that extent. I like digging into electronics and parts and things like that, but to do a refinished job like that is something, and it's not really necessary. Again, like I said, you would lose that beautiful burst top that took 30 years for it to fade out like this. You can see that. You can see the three-piece separation there too. Of the top, so that's kind of cool. Somebody reminded me that Slash's Victoria guitar is a three-piece top. So yeah, there's that going for it. So yeah, I dig this guitar, guys. Yeah, like I said, it's a bit of a ugly duckling there, but not so bad. But I dig it. So in the neck too. A lot of these guitars came with their version of a 60s slim neck, a 60s neck. It is a 60 slim, but it's not the 60 slim that you would find in modern Epiphone guitars. It's actually somewhere between a 59 and a 60s, in that regard. If that gives you any kind of idea of what I'm talking about in terms of the thickness of this, so it's comfortable for me. I can go from that Stoner, which has a true 59 thickness to it, to something like this. It's slightly thinner, and it's still comfortable to me. I might, the frets are okay. I'm not getting a lot of fret buzz out of this you would expect from a 30-year-old guitar. Yeah, mine had the 60 slim neck, very comfortable. Yeah, I think all of them. That was the thing at the time. You have to remember in the 90s, that was a marketing ploy. Hey, these necks on those guitars are so thick, we're going to hook you guys up with, slim necks. And they just took it too far. And not everybody likes a slim neck. And again, this is what I call a Wednesday neck. You guys know what I mean by that, by a Wednesday neck? See, on Monday at that factory, some guy rolled in and he was all groggy from partying and whooping it up in Shinjuku that weekend. So the workmanship he did, because it's not CNC, they're hand sand. They're doing these by hand. The guy's just sitting there working. Monday neck's not so great. Tuesday neck, he's like, oh God, this is another work week, so he's not happy. Wednesday, he's like, okay, I'm in the hump. That's a sweet spot. When you want to get a Wednesday, not just a neck, but you want to get a Wednesday guitar. Of course, there's no way you could find out I suspect that all good guitars are Wednesday guitars. Thursday, he's looking towards the weekend. He's working fast, not as great. And Friday, he's halfway out the door the minute he came in. So yeah, that's what this is what I call Wednesday. It's really well. It's well done. No nicks, no, and for a one piece neck, really nice. So anyway, enough about this. So I just wanted to talk about that. I started to, and I'll show it to you when I do cover this Wednesday wife. I don't know if that analogy will quite play out in that scenario. I'll have to think about that one. Partying with the geisha, yeah. Hell, I did it. So I know he did. I wasn't there in '93 when he was working on this guitar. I was there 2 years later. 2 years later, I showed up in Japan, '95. So this guitar was floating around, new on the market at that time. It's amazing. We finally caught up with each other. But yeah, dig that. At one point, me and this guitar were both in Japan at the same time in the '90s. And here we are. That's funny. That's true. So I've kind of these Orville Les Paul model guitars. Now that I've really got to have, this is the first one that I've owned, the first one that I've had that I've really been able to sit and turn around and look at. And I took a chance. I said that doesn't look so bad, and Fern and I have confirmed that it's not so bad. It's just poorly done. The option, like I said, of refinishing it is there, but why bother? It actually gives the guitar some character. And my goodness gracious, it's a ringer. It's a beautiful sounding one. So guys, why was that possible? Why was I hey, welcome, Tommy Mac 16, welcome, sir, from New York City. Hope all is well there. Why, why do I do these things, and sell them off? Again, like I said, there's a pleasure in taking something like this that some people would pass on. But as you've seen tonight, with a little bit of work between, two dedicated guys in TLC, these things can be brought back to their old glory. And this thing right now, it can go another 30 years, no problem. Ready to go. I just have to decide what I'm going to do. The 3D printing all these rings. I might just do it anyway and just have them around, which leads to my next subject of tonight, is parts. See, I had these speed knobs. I had the exact color match just because I keep parts. I've gotten rid of a lot of my pedals. If you remember, I had a huge pedal collection. You can go back and see that in some of the previous content. But my parts actually has grown. As my pedal collection has shrunk down to the few here, the ones you see here, and the few down here in the box has shrunk. My parts box has actually expanded. And what do I mean by parts? I'm collecting things like this, like pickup rings. Most people would toss something like this. No, I'm going to take this and send this to a 3D printer because they don't make them like this anymore. So I'm going to have, and then those either I'll put it on this guitar if I do decide to keep it. So it has that going forward, or I'll just have them hanging around for another one that comes through. Here's the bridge and tailpiece for this Orville guitar. I have them off right now because I'm working on it. But I have bridge and tailpieces in this container up here. I keep them as spares. I have things like spare pots and caps. Let me see. And also knobs, things like that. And pots, caps, a whole harness, I'll keep things like this. This came out of, and I do mean everything, right? I started a box guitar, tools, and random parts, never knew what random thing you'll need. Exactly, that's the point. Thank you, sir. That is the point of tonight of this, is that you never know. You may get something that you have to replace as insignificant as a cap like this. and you'll be glad that you kept. These are the spare parts I pulled out from actually from my Les. I believe these are from my Les Paul Standard 60s. I replaced that with a RS Guitar Works harness, but I kept the parts for it. And also I have a set of burst buckers here, just sitting around. Lots of parts here. And why? Because as was pointed out by Tommy there, you never know when you're going to need it. It is a wise thing to do to always hold on to your spare parts, because projects are going to come up, things are going to come up, and you're going to need to have that laying around to save you money. The reason I can do these restorations and things like that, I can do them for very cheap, is because I have a lot of parts. And if I don't have it, I know guys who have them that I can swap and trade with in order to get them. Fern being one of them, a couple of guys else out there being one of them as well. And I can do it for literally no money. In Fern's case, other than the cost of his labor time. Parts, nothing. So, now my Strat, I can say it now, my Strat, my Strat, when it arrives this week, again, like I said, I won't be diddling with it. Again, it's all original. It's all original. Again, it's very hard to find a 22-year-old guitar that's all original, especially a Squire. Most of them have been modded to hell. I actually have some Strat parts that weren't mine. I just, again, just stuff that I picked up. I have no idea. Had to be Singapore. Had to be for some reason. But I have a hardtail. This one has a 6-point trim on it. I could switch it over to a hardtail if I wanted to. I don't know if it'll line up exactly, but I won't do that. But if I wanted to, I could do something like that. And that's possible because of holding on to my parts. So when you go into, and some more or less reputable luthiers or guys who work on your guitars, they'll say, oh, well, we threw those old parts away for you. We took care of those for you. Don't worry about it. No, you say, no, sir. I want my original parts back, please. You're not getting that so much these days because people are hip to that. But back when I was coming up, that was the common thing. And I fell for it because I didn't know. I wish that I knew what I knew now, of course, but that's the age-old story. Hindsight is 50-50. But yeah, hold on to those parts, guys, and because you never know. And I'm adding to that all the time. Like I said, in here I've got, again, more of those speed knobs. I've got spares of those. Yeah, everything you can imagine that I hold on to. Of course, you guys know what that is. It's for doing your own setups. That's a separate thing, but of course you would want to have something like that. I got a truss rod cover for that would fit an Epiphone type guitar. I've got a few of these. Don't know why. So parts, yeah. Stuff you want to have because you never know when you're going to need it. And I'm very happy to have that. Where are we at here, guys? All right. Lots of people in the chat. Lots of people watching. I see double digits of people watching, but still single digits in the like. Hit that like button, guys. Mickey says, Mike's Guitar Spares Warehouse. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's turning into that, and it's really going to get that. I mean, hold on. I had this out. Yeah. This is Mike's box of vacuum tubes, vintage tubes, new old stock vintage tubes. I mean, literally this box, I don't know if you can see that, from top to bottom and they're not empty boxes. These are all tubes. Why did I click? I've got my amp. I have one amp, and now I've got This AMT that takes a tube. By the way, I have this out because I'm trying to see if any of these tubes make a difference in the tone. What is the old part you kept that turned out to be the most valuable? Uh, Pickups. Pickups. Even I'll rag. There's only one set. I think it was Wilkinson pickups I tore into because it was so. But the pickups back here on this bass are Wilkinson, and I love them. So I have a love-hate thing for Wilkinson pickups. Those were the only pickups I ever took out of a guitar, and I took them out of my Harley Benton back here. That I put a custom set of pickups in it. Those are the only ones that I tore apart and didn't keep, but pickups are the most valuable thing. Generally, I keep pickups. I used to have a big collection of pickups, but I need to build that up again. I kept an old Gibson pickup that turned out to be an original PF. Yeah, there you go. See, you never know, man. And those things are going for $2,300, $2,500 now a piece. So yeah, stuff like this. I have just gangs of stuff like this laying around, and so it's just an issue of that and the tools, the tools that you need in order to work and do the upkeep, set up yourself on guitars. That's also something I think that you should have. So yeah, guys, boy, that hour went by quick tonight. Holy crap. Well, we had a lot of interesting subjects. We talked about the Strat that's coming, I'm excited about. Another thing about the Affinity Stratocasters is that the bodies are about 3 millimeters thinner than a standard Strat. So if you tried to swap the blocks from a standard Strat into an Affinity, it won't fit. There's about a 3 millimeter space that you'll get there when you try to make that kind of swap out. So, there is that thinner body. However, does it make a big difference? No, 3 millimeters. Like I said, that's a Monday guitar. That guy who was working the bodies that day, he dozed off and he took off 3 millimeters. So I don't really think that makes a big difference, but I thought I would bring that up as well. Some have different screw spacing as well. I'll listen to. Yeah, Tommy, please do. Yeah, yeah. Some do have different screw spacing as well. But again, like I said, I have no plans on modding this guitar. The fact, again, like I said, it's a 22-year-old guitar, and the original owner didn't touch it, didn't mod it out, kept it the way it is. That's a small miracle in itself. Because, and again, in what I'm trying to do, specializing in refurbishing guitars and selling them, that's a hard thing to come across. Older 90s, especially the older out, the longer out you get. And that's why, getting back to Strats, before we wrap it up here again, real, Fender Strats, I've pointed this out before, but there are a plethora of luthiers who were active in the 70s and 80s who've come out on the internet forums in the 90s and the 2000s, said, hey, you know what? We were swapping necks, swapping pieces. We were doing all kinds of things. So we would take a 67 Strat body and we put a post CBS neck on it. We were doing all kinds of things. My old Squire Strat by the side of me is so modified at this point, just to negative my hear. So it's like, I modified it so much, just the tuners are original. Just a switch tip on the selector. That's the only part that's I've modded it so much. Yeah, we can do that. That's what I mean. Think about that. Think about, of somebody buying a Squire Affinity in 2001 and in the course of 22 years, never saying to himself, hey, you know what? I'm going to mod this. I'm going to switch those pickups. I'm going to change the electronics. I'm going to change those tuners. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. The fact that you can find, and again, it gets harder and harder as the years go on because those 70s and 80s guys, like I said, those luthiers were modding the hell out of guitars now that people are selling as vintage original, all original. Are they? No, they're not. Very few of those strats out there. Yeah, and in the 70s strats, if you're looking to get, I would really know what you're doing when you're looking at those because those are all over the place. Not, but as players, one of the reasons I also like the Squire's Affinities has the CBS headstock. I like the big headstocks on the Strats. I think that some reason I find that I like that. My guys don't. I do. I like that big headstock, 72 headstock. But yeah, dig that. Squire Affinities are something that to find unmodded to this date is pretty hard to find. But I found one, and again, like I said, I got it at a great price, 120 from Belgium. It's here in the EU. From Belgium, $120 including shipping. So that's within the price range. Those guitars generally 150 to 250, you're doing all right. But once you get into the 200 to 250 range, you can buy a new Squire Affinity. So there's that. When you start modifying, it becomes an itch you just can't scratch. Yeah, yeah, that's it. And I went through that period, and I have learned to leave things alone. I finally learned that lesson that sometimes you can mod yourself out of a good tone. Like this Orville right here, I you know the you know I wouldn't. I mean, I refurbished it, but I didn't mod it. I put it back to what it looked like in its original condition when it first came out of the showroom. And my Stoner guitar, I have no interest in modding that at all. Old Squires often will have the original strings. Yeah, especially when you can find those ones where somebody just bought a lot of old ones and they're selling them. As they still have the original strings on it. Yeah. Norm's Rare Guitars has guitars from the '60s that were, still have the hang tags on them, still have the original strings on them. So yeah, that happens a lot. This even has a holly veneer on it up there at the Hollywood veneer on it at the top. So a lot of bang for these older guitars, a lot of bang for your buck. So something to look at if you're interested in getting a Strat. The reason I chose that one is value. You're getting a heck of a Strat for little money. I mean, I would put that 2001 Affinity Strat in terms of just what you're getting over a lot of the made in Mexico ones. It's just it's going to be a solid guitar. Knock on wood. But it is my first Strat, so check that out this week. We will cover that, guys. Yeah, well, we had a good one tonight. Boy, that went by fast. Time flies when you're having fun, and you got such a great audience. Boy, I have to tell you guys that every week I come here, and I look forward to having these conversations and looking up topics and thinking about things to talk about. It's a lot of fun. I know a lot of YouTubers are down these days in the dumps about ad revenues. I have to be honest with you, mine has certainly not improved. Hit the thumbs up, everybody. Thank you. Please, let's get it up there. Let's hit that thumbs up. Whether you're watching this live or in the rerun, don't forget to hit the like button. But the channel is growing, though. And that's the main point of this. And I enjoy being here every Sunday night. I did take a break this week. Like I said, I was on holiday this week. I took last Wednesday to this Wednesday coming off. just to refresh my mind and kind of rebalance myself. Go walk with my dog. But I do look forward to the. I didn't want to take a. I didn't do the regular content, but I so look forward to this live. I've been thinking about it all week, about what I was going to talk about. I was excited to talk about this Squire Infinity Strat coming. I wanted to share with you about this Orville and show you that, you know, dig beneath the surface. Sometimes something will look bad, but with a little bit of elbow grease, you can polish a turd into a diamond in the rough, so to speak. This was, and it's so much so that because of the weight, because of the sound, I'm actually considering keeping it, which is something that I don't do. I don't buy guitars to keep, but I like it that much. But and as you guys know, have had a lot of Les Pauls come through here, and so that's saying something about these Orville Japanese-made guitars. Remind you, my Stoner guitar is also made in Japan as well, so there's something there. Yeah, guys, have a good week. If you're not on holiday, if you're just doing your normal thing, be careful out there and enjoy that. Um, Pay it forward. There was another topic I was going to talk about tonight. This is the 50th anniversary of hip hop. There was a survey in Zero Hedge that talked about the most popular genres of music in the United States at this time. A survey of about 10,000 people between the ages of 16 and 64. And it turns out that actually alternative and rock music is the number one genre in the United States. Replacing hip hop is now a distant third, actually. Folk music and jazz are at the bottom of the list. Classical music is above folk music and jazz. Somebody would rather listen to Mozart than listen to Art Blakey. Country is number two. So it goes alternative, rock, country, and then rap, hip hop. Again, at the bottom of that list was jazz and folk, and folk was at the bottom of the list. And I was thinking about, boy, on a lot of these shows on HGTV that I watch over here, they're always featuring these folk bluegrass folk bands, and when they go to Nashville, and the truth of the matter is not a lot of people are really digging that, man. I'm happy to see rock and alternative back. Being a rock and alternative guy, I'm happy to see that. As to the 50th anniversary, and then I'll wrap this up, guys. I just wanted to touch on that. I forgot about touching on this. Yeah, I've seen those too. Yeah. On the 50th anniversary of hip hop, I am fortunate to be of the generation that was I was a teenager when hip hop was happening, and when it first got started. And I've said this before, and I'll wrap this show up tonight by saying the hip hop of today is nothing like the hip hop of that era. As a matter of fact, the messaging, and we've lost our way with that music, and I won't listen to it. You're only good. You're only as smart as the level of the entertainment that you take in at the end of the day. And there's only so minutes in the day, and I don't want to hear some of the things. Yeah, there you go, Sugar Hill Gang. I was on the bus when that record came out, and KGLH in LA played that song in heavy rotation. I heard it in the morning on the bus going to school, and I heard it Pete and Boz, yes. And I heard it coming back home, and I knew the lyrics, and the chicken tastes like wood. I remember all the lyrics going through that. All the kids on the bus would just rap along with it. Rapper's Delight. And then, of course, Run DMC, with their collaboration with Aerosmith. And then you got the Beastie Boys, and you had this wide variety. Female rappers were on point too. and it was something you had De La Soul, you know, kind of a cosmic kind of thing. We skated to it. It was the music that you went to and you skated to at the skating rink. Me too. Ice skating rink in my case. Well, I don't know how I was a mediocre ice skater. I guess okay, better at skiing, but that we lost that in roller skating. Yeah, um, we lost that, and this stuff that even rappers, the old school rappers now are coming out on YouTube and they're saying this music now is, in their words, trash, and I have to agree with them. Garbage in, garbage out, guys. Garbage in, garbage out. That goes to as far as rock and metal and those things. You know, there's some garbage stuff out there too. Um, so you know, we just have to be on guard with it. It has nothing to do with the consumer. It has everything to do with the record companies. I'll give. What do I mean by that? I'm going over, but anyway, I want to talk about this. This is my last subject. I forgot about this subject. Is that we look this week at the downfall of that artist Lizzo. By the way, guys, well, no, that's another subject. But we've seen the downfall of the artist Lizzo. Now, in my opinion, she was a completely manufactured artist. And what do I mean by that? It wasn't really, it wasn't a groundswell thing where she played in clubs and she did these things and she built herself up and she built this audience and the record companies came to her. No, it was more she found herself in the right place at the right time, and the record company were able to manufacture a Milli Vanilli, if you will. She actually did her own food playing, her own singing. I'm not saying like that, but that was still the manufactured pop of that era, and it still continues to this day. And you see that she fell so far because of things she did here down the street at the Banana Bar. It's about a 20-minute walk from here. Things that she did, you know, led to her downfall, where her sales are on the toilet. She's been canceled from being considered for the Super Bowl. Jay-Z canceled a concert that he was doing with her headlining. She's done. And her fans and followers have all fallen away because she had nothing real. If she was a real artist and she went through this kind of scandal with real talent, and I'm not calling her untalented, I'm just saying she's not a vocalist. I don't know what she is, you know. Yeah. There you go. Missy Elliott is a real talent. I could go through a lot of female rappers who later on became actresses. I don't know if you saw Lizzo on that episode of Mandalorian, the third season. It stunk up the whole room. Boy. Two Live Crew. No, you know what, guys? The Two Live Crew was back of the trunk type of music. It was party music. It was late night, kids are asleep thing, and it had a space, but it wasn't the dominant thing. And it was funny. You know, I have to tell you, I know the lyrics to a lot of Two Live Crew songs. So no, I consider them to actually be solid hip hop. Interestingly enough, I think it started with NWA, but that's another thing. She didn't have any real talent, not a real. It was awesome. She didn't have a real solid foundation. Any other artist that went through those kind of scandals, they could usually write it out and they could still go out and do things and recover. When you're a manufactured artist, in her case, you have no bottom to you. And I mention this to say that we've had no say in who these hip hop artists are, in my opinion, for a decade now, maybe even longer. A lot of them manufacture. A lot of them are people who are not elevated in their lifestyles, in their past, their presents, or their futures. Maybe their futures, we would hope. And it's drugged the whole thing down. But these were selections not made by public decree. These were manufactured by the record companies. If we, again, garbage in, garbage out, if we refuse to listen to it and we put it off, it'll move on. And that's why there's been no top 10 hip hop albums this year. It's starting to fall off. People are starting to say, hey, you know what? There's only so many, wet ass, you fill in the blank songs that I want to listen to. And so it's a good thing, is what I'm saying. I like to end these on a positive note. That was my positive note, is this subject. Is that chart that and you can torture the data to confess to anything, but I think it was a pretty good selection of demographic from looking at how they did that survey. And it's really glad to see that the rock and it has climbed up above country, because you would think it would be country at number one. No, rock alternative is starting to come back. So that's good news for those lovers of that music like me and like you guys. But yeah, dig that. Yeah, the 50th anniversary of hip hop, and we're worse off. It's not. We're worse off 50 years later. All right, guys. Right, Brock's been back. They just didn't realize it. All right, guys. I will say good night to you. Please take care of yourselves. Have a good one. And we will be here same time, same bad channel next week. Hit those likes, hit that subscribe if you hadn't subscribed with us yet. If you made it here all the way to the end, thank you so much, guys, for showing up. Thank you for taking your time to listen. And again, be good. I'll see you next week.